just after trying on the wedding dress. I was a bit thirsty. Charlie went to the convenience store to buy me mineral water. I stood by the roadside waiting for him. Suddenly, a middle-aged man rushed out and knelt down in front of me abruptly. He was in tears and said, "Mom, don't marry Charlie. He will kill you." I was stunned. I am only 23 years old. This man in front of me, who looks nearly 40 years old and already has fine lines at the corners of his eyes, is crying and kneeling on the ground. Calling me, Mom? Who wouldn't be scared? Moreover, he is not solid. The halo emanating from his body is like a 3D projection. His unruly appearance is 7 or 8 points similar to Charlie's. There is even a bit of my shadow between his eyebrows. The man eagerly wanted to hug me, but his arm passed directly through my body. He seemed very sad, and tears flowed straight down his face. My whole body stiffened. He looked up at me, his eyes full of remorse, and called me again. "Mom, you must live happily and blissfully in this life. Don't marry Charlie. He will have a woman and an illegitimate child outside." Before he could finish speaking, the halo around him gradually faded and completely disappeared on the spot. It was only a dozen or so seconds. Under the scorching sun, a chill ran down my spine. Looking around, the traffic was heavy and pedestrians were in a hurry. Everything was as usual. The scene just now seemed to be just an illusion of mine. Charlie came out of the convenience store, wearing a white t-shirt and blue jeans. Simple and refreshing. He approached me, gave a malicious smile, and put the ice-cold mineral water on my neck. A piercing chill hit me. Ouch. I was jolted. Instantly pulled back to reality. Having succeeded in his prank, Charlie's eyes curved, and he laughed even more happily. "Were you chilled?" But I didn't snatch the mineral water bottle and chase after him to beat him up as usual. Instead, I stared at him in a daze. Charlie's smile gradually subsided, and he reached out and touched my cheek. "Why is your face so pale? Are you suffering from heat stroke?" As if by some strange impulse, I asked, "Will you have an illegitimate child outside after we get married?" Charlie was first stunned, and then he was amused. It has always been him chasing after me and thinking of ways to please me. I didn't expect that I would ask such an insecure question. "Annie, what are you worried about?" Charlie's mouth curved upward, deliberately lengthening his tone. "Are you afraid that I will be charmed by wildflowers outside and give you an illegitimate child?" I pursed my lips and didn't answer. I just looked at him quietly. "You're serious?" Charlie widened his eyes. "What are you thinking? Can't you feel my love for you? Do I have to cut open my heart and show it to you? Even if time could flow backwards, I would never betray you. As for an illegitimate child, the mother of my child can only be you." He affectionately put his arm around my shoulder and gave a loud kiss on my cheek, finally making me laugh. Charlie and I are childhood sweethearts. Ever since I can remember, he has been chasing after me with a snot bubble. After starting school, no one dared to bully me because Charlie would stand up for me. He has an unruly personality, and his hobbies are diverse. He does everything with only 3 minutes of enthusiasm. Only his love for me has persisted for many years. In Senior 3, in order to catch up with my grades, Charlie studied hard and forgot to eat and sleep. As expected, on the day before the college entrance examination, he fell ill. Due to his poor performance in the college entrance examination, under great pressure, he repeated a year and finally was admitted to the same university as me. In the junior year, I went mountain climbing with my roommate. Halfway through, there was a sudden rainstorm. My roommate and I temporarily found a small store in the scenic area to take shelter from the rain. While my phone still had some battery, I sent a message to Charlie to let him know I was safe. Later, the rain got heavier and heavier, and heavier. My roommate and I made the worst plan to spend the night in the mountains and wait for rescue. At 5 in the morning, Charlie was completely soaked by the heavy rain. His messy hair was stuck to his cheeks, mixed with mud and water. He appeared in front of me, panting. He appeared together with the faint sunrise. I was extremely surprised. What are you doing here? It's so dangerous. What if there is a landslide? Charlie was uncharacteristically sullen. He wanted to hug me but was afraid of dirtying me. I was worried about you. If something happened to you, I wouldn't want to live either. My eyes became hot, and I hugged him tightly without hesitation. After this incident, everyone said that Charlie is Annie's sycophant. Charlie was not only not angry but also grinned foolishly. Annie, I am willing to be your dog. Sometimes Charlie's mother would joke, our Charlie can only be tamed by Annie. At this time, my mother and Charlie's mother would smile knowingly. From childhood innocence to the passionate persistence in youth, I can clearly feel Charlie's love for me. 23-year-old Annie also loves Charlie wholeheartedly. So, regarding the strange scene of seeing that man during the day, I tried my best to convince myself that my brain is malfunctioning, perhaps due to the great pressure of preparing for marriage. I had an illusion. That night, in my sleep, those bloodshot eyes appeared again. The sadness spreading in the depths of the eyes didn't seem like an act. Still calling me, Mom. I was awake and with cold sweat on my back. As I tossed and turned, I couldn't help thinking, should I believe it even if it might not be true? I was restless and didn't sleep well all night. After waking up, I sat in front of the dressing table and covered the tired traces under my eyes with foundation. Today is the day when Charlie and I go to sign the prenuptial agreement. My family is mainly engaged in the production of electronic product components. Charlie's family is involved in electronic product trade. The two families are in the same industrial chain. The matter of the prenuptial agreement was jointly required by the elders of both families. It's not that they don't trust each other. It's just that after years of struggling in the business field, they are used to writing down negotiated matters in black and white. Having a written guarantee will be a little more reassuring. Of course, I have no objection to this. But Charlie is very unhappy. What's this? Dividing money so clearly. Is it interesting? Why does getting married seem like calculating each other? We are a family. Since we have decided to get married, we should trust each other unreservedly instead of relying on these cold clauses to restrain and guarantee anything. I love you as a person. Understand? Until we walked into the law firm, Charlie still had a sullen face. In the conference room, besides the two of us, there were also lawyers from both sides. On the table were 2 stacks of thick prenuptial agreements. Charlie frowned. Change the clause. No matter what situation leads to the breakdown of our marriage in the future, I will voluntarily leave the house with nothing. Charlie's family lawyer was slightly stunned, still maintaining a professional smile on his face. He said, Mr. Charlie, you need to think it over. If there is really an unpredictable situation in the future, you may face great losses. Charlie didn't care and waved his hand. There is no risk. Because Annie and I will never get divorced. I have absolute confidence in our relationship. After saying that, he held my hand tightly. A firm strength came from his palm. The afternoon sun shone on his angular side face. The gaze looking at me was filled with love and certainty. At this moment, I felt very relieved, and I couldn't help feeling a little guilty. For an illusion lasting only a dozen seconds, I actually wavered in my trust in the people around me for more than 20 years. Is my will a bit too unsteady? My rights and interests are fully guaranteed. So my lawyer didn't speak. Charlie's family lawyer fulfilled the obligation of reminder, and naturally would not go against the will of the client again. The agreement was quickly revised. Charlie didn't even look at it and signed it with a wave of his hand. That man never appeared in my dream again. After marriage, the businesses of the two companies began to integrate, and Charlie and I both became very busy. The first quarrel occurred in the 5th month after marriage. I was pregnant. Before marriage, Charlie and I agreed that career should be the top priority, and we would consider having a child in 2 years. At that time, he pondered for a while. The emotions in the depths of his eyes were unclear. He said, "Okay. I thought we had reached a consensus. So when my menstruation was a week late, and I saw two extremely clear red lines on the test strip, my first reaction was shock. Many years later, I learned that Charlie had tampered with the condom. But at that time, I never thought that he would use such a despicable means to deal with me. Just when I wanted to tell him that we could find time on the weekend to accompany me to the hospital for an abortion, Charlie saw the test strip in my hand. His eyes lit up amazingly in an instant. Excitedly, he picked me up and spun me around. "Annie, we have a baby. We are going to be parents." But I wasn't happy at all. We clearly agreed not to have a child so soon. "What should we do now?" Charlie stopped and put me on the ground. His tone was very serious. "Annie, this is a gift from heaven. It is the baby who chooses to come to us at this time. Aren't you happy?" I pushed him away. "Looking a bit ugly. Let me think." Charlie's face also darkened. "You hesitated? Annie, don't you want this child?" I felt a burst of annoyance. This all came too suddenly. "Can you give me some time to think about it?" We clearly planned to focus on career. Now this child has completely disrupted our rhythm. Charlie took a step forward. His tone excited. "The company's affairs are taken care of by me. You don't need to worry. I just want a home. A home with you and a child. Is this too much to ask?" I took a step back. "Don't touch me. Let me be alone." Later, the doctor said that I was naturally weak and not easy to get pregnant. And under the strong request of the elders of both families, I still kept this child. During pregnancy, Charlie took meticulous care of me, accompanied me to prenatal checkups, learned pregnancy knowledge. At night, he tells stories to help me fall asleep. In the middle of the night, when I have a craving for something to eat, he immediately gets up and drives out to buy midnight snacks. Pregnant women in the same period all envy me for having such a good husband. To a certain extent, Charlie does relieve my pregnancy anxiety. After 10 months of pregnancy, I gave birth to a boy. Charlie named him Miki. After confinement, I was almost never idle. Ladies have things they should do. Expand relationships, maintain contacts, and connect resources. I am using my strength to ensure that Charlie has no worries at all. In terms of family and career division, Charlie and I cooperate very well. In front of me, he is still the perfect husband. Not only can't I find any faults with him, but he is also becoming more calm and steady, gradually shedding his impulsive side. Everyone praises Charlie as the perfect husband, and I am still convinced that he loves me. But in one's life, there will always be things that slap one in the face. In Miki's 3rd year, Charlie went on a business trip overseas. I drove out in his newly bought Bentley. When I put my bag on the passenger seat, I saw a rose-red lace panty. I couldn't bear it. With my personality, I would never bear it. I immediately took a photo and sent it to Charlie. I called him, and the beeping tone indicated that the other party was turned off. Only then did I realize that he was still on the plane and hadn't landed. So I canceled my plan to go out and went home and told the nanny to pack up things. Miki has a lot of toys. Just packing up his things took an entire afternoon. At 4 o'clock, I drove to pick up Miki from kindergarten. More than 3-year-old Miki is lively and active, inheriting his father's full energy. He is showing me the small handicrafts he made in kindergarten. Babbling. Unusually. I didn't tease him. I picked him up and walked towards the parking lot. Miki keenly sensed my abnormal mood. His little hand hugged my neck. "Mom, are you not happy?" Miki was very obedient in kindergarten today. The teacher also praised me. I forced out a gentle smile. "Mom is not unhappy. Mom is just a little tired today." I took Miki back to the apartment I purchased before getting married. That night, Charlie finally landed and turned on his phone. He called me, his voice anxious. "Annie, listen to me explain. This is a misunderstanding. It's me." My hand holding the phone trembled, and my tone was angry. "Misunderstanding? What kind of misunderstanding would make a woman's panty appear in your car?" "Charlie, Do you think I'm blind or stupid? Charlie's tone was choked. No. I didn't check carefully at that time. I was so angry that I laughed. Didn't check carefully? Are you regretting not wiping your mouth clean after steal food? Don't say anything. The child is mine. When you come back, we will get a divorce. There's nothing more to say. Charlie, I am so disappointed in you. Charlie roared on the other end of the phone. Divorce? I will never agree to divorce you. I hung up the phone directly. The phone fell on the floor. I slowly slid down along the wall and hugged myself. Various images kept emerging in my mind. The once sweetness and trust seemed to turn into sharp thorns at this moment, stabbing me painfully. Tears dropped to the ground one by one. Miki heard the commotion and ran out of the room to hug me. In a milky voice but full of momentum, Mom, who bullied you? Tell Miki. Miki will protect you. He gently wiped my tears with his little hand. Mom, don't be afraid. Miki is a little man and will always be with Mom. I forced out a smile and comforted him by saying that Mom is fine. But he didn't believe me. His big black eyes like black gems blinked and stared at me full of worry. I looked up at the clock, realizing that it was getting late. I took Miki to the bedroom to lull him to sleep. I sat by the bed, gently humming Miki's favorite lullaby, patting his back, and watching his eyelids gradually become heavy and enter a sweet dream. After covering him with a quilt and kissing his forehead, when I stood up and turned around to turn off the light, I was almost scared out of my wits. The man I met on the street 4 years ago appeared again. He stood by the door, surrounded by a warm light. There was still longing and grief in his eyes. Choking up, he said, Mom, I haven't heard this lullaby since I was 5 years old. Even though 4 years have passed, I am still extremely shocked by this scene. However, I am a little calmer in my expression. I led him to the living room and noticed that his right foot was a bit lame. I already had a guess in my heart and asked him, You are Miki? He walked to the small wooden horse, sat cross-legged, and tried to reach out and push the small wooden horse. But his finger easily penetrated the wooden outline. He gave a bitter smile. Yes. I am 45-year-old Miki. Mom, you didn't listen to me and still married Charlie. I stared at him in a daze. 45-year-old Miki had a pair of gold-rimmed glasses on the bridge of his nose. He was wearing a simple white shirt and matched with suit pants. There was a steady temperament between his eyebrows. So, this is what Miki looks like when he grows up. My voice trembled. You came back. Did you already know that Charlie would cheat and my marriage with him would be unhappy? I paused, and my voice was a bit hoarse. You also said that he would kill me? Miki nodded and smiled bitterly. Yes. So I desperately came back to stop you. I was terrified. Then how did I die? Miki said slowly. Charlie insisted on not divorcing. You two fought a legal battle for 2 years. After the court ruled for divorce, he set up a scene of accidental death and killed you. He said he loved you so much that only when you died would you not leave him. After your death, a large sum of money was compensated by personal accident insurance, which became the startup capital for Charlie's family to launch a new project. The company of Grandpa and Grandma was also completely annexed by him. For a moment, my mind went blank. I couldn't believe that Charlie could be so crazy. He cheated on me and betrayed me. I definitely wanted divorce, but I can't imagine that Charlie would kill me so brutally. Reports of many wife-killing cases can't help but come to mind. Before those women died, did they have the same feeling as me? They couldn't believe that their pillow-side person could be so heartless. For some reason, I always feel that Charlie's motive is not so simple. Perhaps Miki believes that Charlie killed me because he loves me too much. But in these 3 years, Charlie and I have talked more and more about business and less about feelings. His focus is almost entirely on his career. I inexplicably thought of that prenuptial agreement. A chill ran through my heart. And I had another guess. According to my character, I probably insisted that he leave the house with nothing. He couldn't bear to part with the huge property. So he killed me to end it all. My face was pale. After a while, I asked again. You were only 5 years old at that time. Who took care of you? Miki smiled faintly. At first, Grandma took care of me. Later, the woman he kept outside finally entered the family. One after another. She gave birth to 3 more children. That woman wore your jewelry and your clothes. I couldn't bear it and pushed her. As a result, she lost a child. Charlie couldn't tolerate me. Grandma took this opportunity to forcefully take me back. Mom, I hate Charlie. I wish he were dead. At this point, Miki's eyes were red and his fists were unconsciously clenched. My mind was in chaos. I tried to calm myself down. Who is that woman? What's her name? Miki gritted his teeth and said hatefully. Her name is Yuki. She is Charlie's personal secretary. A young and invincible face appeared in front of my eyes. It's her? Charlie told me that Yuki is outstanding in work ability, so he promoted her exceptionally to be his personal secretary. As soon as she got close to the bed. I laughed absurdly. Miki told me many more things. Until just before he left. I pointed to his right foot, and couldn't help asking. How did you hurt your foot? Miki's expression was very calm. Charlie's illegitimate child spoke ill of you in front of me. When we argued, he pushed me onto the road and I was run over by a car. What? My voice rose abruptly. And my heart ached extremely. It's okay. Mom. I'm used to it long ago. Miki smiled at me. Remember what I said. Don't repeat the same fate. After saying this, Miki disappeared. The living room was quiet. The wind blew the white gauze curtain. It seemed as if he had never been here. Charlie hurriedly booked the nearest flight and flew back overnight from abroad. He searched from our house to my parents' house, and finally came to this apartment. He was unshaven and his eyes were haggard. It was obvious that he hadn't slept all night. Annie. I was wrong. Don't be angry anymore. Okay? I was very calm. Who is that woman? Charlie swallowed. It's just someone randomly called on a software. It was only once. I'm a man. I have that kind of need. It was just a moment of confusion for excitement. I have absolutely no feelings for that kind of woman. Believe me. I looked at Charlie lying through his teeth. Another sharp pain stabbed my heart. He is still lying to me. Even now. He still refuses to confess Yuki's existence. What is he afraid of? Afraid that if I find out, this little couple will be forced to break up? I coldly laughed. Okay. Since so, I will also find someone else. From now on, we will each play our own way. No. Charlie instantly flew into a rage and shouted loudly. You dare. I will kill you. The threat in his eyes didn't seem fake. Since I found out that Charlie cheated, it seems that I have only gradually seen the dark side that he has never shown in front of me. I couldn't hold back the anger in my heart. With wide eyes, I glared at him without fear. Why? Only the officials are allowed to set fires while the common people are not allowed to light lamps? When you were rolling in bed with another woman, why didn't you worry that I would kill you? I just won't allow it. Charlie's eyes were red, and he tightly choked my neck. The huge quarrel scared Miki, who was playing in the room. When he ran out, he just saw the scene of Charlie choking me. He burst into loud cries immediately and rushed over to kick and beat Charlie. Bad daddy. Bad daddy. Let go of mommy quickly. Only then did Charlie suddenly let go and wake up from his madness. Regardless of the pain in my neck, I picked up the crying Miki and patted his back to comfort him. Miki, don't be afraid. Mommy is here. Charlie rubbed his face with his hands and said guiltily. Sorry. I ignored Charlie. I carried Miki back to the room. After spending some time coaxing him, I locked his children's room. When I came out, Charlie was sitting on the sofa. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, I directly slapped him and lowered my voice. You're crazy. Dare to hit me? His right cheek was scratched by my manicure, leaving a long bloody mark. He gave a helpless smile and said, "Are you calmed down? If not, hit me a few more times." I was too lazy to pay attention to him, and turned around and entered the study. Following the advice of 45-year-old Miki, I bought many stocks. In the evening, perhaps due to being frightened, Miki developed a high fever. I was extremely anxious and kicked awake Charlie, who was sleeping on the sofa, and asked him to drive us to the children's hospital. When we arrived at the underground garage, he walked towards the Bentley. I said sarcastically, "Doctor of my car, I think yours is dirty." Charlie paused for a moment. "I will sell that Bentley tomorrow." Afraid that Miki's high fever might recur, and being cautious, I decided to stay in the hospital for observation for one night. Charlie and I stayed by the hospital bed. Several times he opened his mouth as if he wanted to talk to me but didn't know what to say. I also felt a sense of melancholy in my heart. I didn't know why we had come to this point. The scenes of our youth played in my mind like a movie. I once thought we could walk together for a lifetime. Unexpectedly, staying together forever couldn't withstand a momentary impulse. I smiled bitterly. The ward was so quiet that only the sound of the instruments and Miki's even breathing could be heard. We remained silent like this all night. 7 When we were discharged from the hospital the next day, Charlie was holding Miki with an indwelling needle on his arm. I was holding the medicine and walking beside them. When we were leaving the hospital gate, we saw Yuki. She was wearing a goose-colored dress, with slightly curly long hair and light and pure makeup on her face. Indeed, she was young and beautiful. Charlie's body stiff and slightly, and his expression was somewhat complicated. Yuki also seemed to have not expected to see us here, but she still walked over gracefully and greeted us. Then, she smiled and asked Charlie, "President Charlie, didn't you reply to my message because the child is sick?" Charlie's tone was cold and distant, keeping people thousands of miles away. "Secretary Yuki, pay attention to your words." He was warning Yuki not to cause trouble. Yuki curled her lips sarcastically. "Really? I thought that as a personal secretary, my duties included handling the boss's private affairs." Charlie didn't look at her anymore and turned to look at me. "Let's go." But Yuki reached out and stopped us. "Don't leave in such a hurry. President Charlie, don't you ask me what I'm doing at the hospital?" I was already somewhat impatient and reached out to take Miki. Charlie held the child a little tighter, and didn't let me take him. He frowned, and there was disgust in his eyes. "This is a children's hospital. Are you crazy to come here for treatment?" Yuki ignored Charlie's sarcasm. She blinked her innocent big eyes. "I'm pregnant. Of course I come to the obstetrics and gynecology department of the children's hospital for an examination." There was a 10-second silence. Charlie's face was livid. "Secretary Yuki, if you still want to work for the Charlie family, deal with this child yourself." Yuki was also stubborn and raised her pointed chin. "What if I must give birth to it?" She was indeed young, and quite courageous. Or perhaps she was relying on Charlie's love and acting arrogantly because of being spoiled. I looked at them quietly, feeling completely cold inside. I didn't want to waste time watching them act. What was annoying was that I still had to pretend not to know their messy affairs at this time. I simply took out my phone. "Congratulations, Secretary Yuki. This is a happy event. Let's add each other. I'm a person with experience. If you have any questions, you can ask me." Yuki looked at me and smiled brightly, saying meaningfully, "That's great. I really have many questions and want to ask Mrs. Charlie for advice." We all ignored Charlie's stop and successfully exchanged contact information. At around 6 o'clock in the evening, Charlie and I were having dinner. Yuki sent me a message. "Sister Annie, my boyfriend doesn't want this child and won't accompany me for prenatal checkups. What should I do? Do you have any good solutions?" I glanced at Charlie across the table, put down my chopsticks and replied, "Then you have to be tough. If he doesn't want the child, make a fuss with him. How can you let yourself be wronged when you're pregnant? I can't stand this kind of anger. When I was pregnant, President Charlie didn't miss a single prenatal checkup. Covering mouth and laughing. JPG. Not long after the message was sent, Charlie's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and hung up the call. The phone kept ringing, and he walked to the balcony impatiently. The soundproof glass on the balcony was of such good quality that only faintly could one hear Charlie furiously shout, "Get lost!" He stayed on the balcony for a while, watching the sun gradually set. After coming out, he picked up his coat on the sofa and said to me, "There's something wrong with the company. I'll go out for a while." I didn't express an opinion. When Charlie was about to leave after changing his shoes, I casually said, "If you walk out now, don't get lost and not find your way home." Charlie paused and stood at the entrance. The warm yellow light shone on him, but it couldn't dispel his gloomy face like ink at the moment. "I know what I'm doing." After saying that, he left without hesitation. A message from Yuki popped up on my phone. "Sister, your trick is really useful. My boyfriend is here to accompany me." An hour later, Yuki posted a moment on WeChat. The picture was of a man's hand unpacking a takeout box of chicken soup. On the slender ring finger, there was a wedding ring. "It's Charlie's and my wedding ring. I don't want to pretend to turn a blind eye to this provocation, nor do I want to beat around the bush with Yuki. Secretary Yuki, the boyfriend in your mouth wouldn't be my husband, would it?" I watched the other party is typing on the chat box flickering for a long time. Finally, Yuki admitted it, and her attitude was still very arrogant. "Yes, you guessed it. I was still wondering when you would find out." She sent another video. Charlie was sitting on the sofa, smoking irritably. Half of the chicken soup on the table had been drunk. Upon careful observation, one can also see the packaging box of condoms in the trash can next to the coffee table. I was a bit stunned. Since I got pregnant, Charlie has quit smoking. It turns out that he just doesn't smoke in front of me. At Yuki's place, he can relax and be himself freely. I suddenly realized Charlie gradually becoming steady, self-restrained, and restraining his desires is all an illusion of mine. He has used his willful side and boundless exuberant energy on Yuki. Yuki, his heart is no longer with you. I am younger and more beautiful than you, and I have more tricks in bed than you. Charlie loves me. He can't live without me. I sneered, leaning on the sofa. I found a comfortable sitting position. "Is your child also Charlie's?" "Yuki, of course. My first time was with him. He must be responsible for me." "Very good." I immediately forwarded this chat record, along with that fuchsia underwear picture, to the A-loving family group. At that time, my dad and Charlie's dad were chatting animatedly. They were preparing to enroll Miki in a Go class and were discussing which famous teacher is more suitable for beginners. In an instant, the group was as silent as snow. Charlie certainly saw it too. I don't know what happened on Yuki's side. She didn't reply to my message again. The old house of the Charlie family was brightly lit. When Charlie hurried over in a panic, what he saw was me and our parents from both families sitting upright on rosewood chairs. I looked at him coldly as he knelt on the ground. Charlie's father was so angry that his face was flushed red. He picked up a bamboo board and started hitting Charlie. "You bastard! Doing such a shameful thing. Are you worthy of Annie? Are you worthy of this family? How did I educate you since you were young? Be responsible and loyal. Where have you forgotten all that? How could such a worthless thing like you come out of the Charlie family? Leaving your good wife and son behind, and getting involved with those messy people. You must deal with that woman and child outside. Otherwise, I don't have you as a son." The bamboo board landed heavily on Charlie's back, making a frightening dull sound. Gradually, bloodstains seeped out on his shirt, which was shocking. Somehow, I seemed to see 16-year-old Charlie when he made a mistake. But I no longer protected him and pleaded for him. I just sat quietly on the chair and watched him being beaten. Charlie clenched his teeth tightly. Sweat dripped from his forehead. But he remained silent all along. It wasn't until Charlie's mother couldn't bear to watch anymore, with tears welling up in her eyes. That's enough. Are you going to beat him to death? Only then did Charlie's father stop. He threw the blood-stained bamboo board on the ground, and was panting with exhaustion. The living room was quiet again. Everyone was waiting for me to speak. Charlie spoke first. His tone very sincere. Annie, when I went to find Yuki today, I just wanted to make things clear to her completely. Ask her to abort the child in her belly. And completely cut off contact. I really didn't expect her to say those things to you. I asked him, is that fuchsia underwear Yuki's? Charlie's face looked ugly. Yes. My face was very cold. So at first you lied to me. Were you planning to hide your affair with Yuki, so that you could continue having an affair conveniently? Charlie abruptly interrupted me. And the truth blurted out. No. I just didn't want you to misunderstand too much. I was preparing to solve this matter quietly. If I had known that Yuki was such a scheming woman, I wouldn't have touched her in the first place. I laughed in disbelief. You are regretting that you were not careful enough and that you chose the wrong Yuki, rather than regretting that you cheated and would be sorry for me? If Yuki hadn't left her underwear or sent me those messages, would you still have planned to continue your double life? Enjoying the warmth of family while enjoying the excitement of an extramarital affair and even having a child without any scruples? Charlie's face turned pale. No. I took precautions very well every time. I never thought she would get pregnant. Enough. I don't want to hear these disgusting details. I interrupted him. Let's just talk about what to do. Charlie raised his hand and wiped the thin sweat on his forehead. I will make Yuki abort the child, fire her from the company, and completely cut off contact with her. Annie, as long as you don't mention divorce, you can have any compensation you want. Compensation? I don't want to jump to the step of compensation, so muddled lie. The conjecture in my heart still wants to be answered. I asked. You don't want a divorce because of the prenuptial agreement, right? He suddenly raised his eyes and then immediately looked away. Of course not. I don't want a divorce because I love you. Lying. When he lies, he never dares to look me in the eyes. After 4 years of struggling in the business world, he has changed from young master of the Charlie family to General Charlie. He has long been used to weighing the pros and cons. How could he not consider property issues? My gaze cooled down inch by inch. Charlie also knows me well. Seeing my expression, he realized that his lie had been exposed by me and hurriedly explained. I admit that I did consider a prenuptial agreement. But that's really just a very small part. Our relationship over so many years. And the child. And the two families are so closely cooperating. These are what I care about. How could I divorce you just because of a little secretary? Yuki is just a plaything to relieve loneliness. She can't compare with you at all. I laughed lowly. And tears flowed down unconsciously. I understood. Charlie refused to divorce because the sunk cost was too high. He couldn't bear the wealth he had worked hard for over the years, the connections I had in my hands, and the relationship he had cultivated over the years. He pondered and considered and only came up with the answer of not wanting a divorce. But he never considered my feelings. In Charlie's pitch-black pupils, there was a me who was crying and laughing at the same time. I said, okay, from today on, all your credit cards will be suspended. As compensation, the shares under your name will be transferred to me. I will forgive you this time. If you don't agree, we will divorce. Charlie's father and Charlie's mother had livid expressions, but they didn't refute. Charlie and I each hold shares in the Charlie family. The rest are under Charlie's father's name. Even if I take this, I am not the largest shareholder of the company. This compensation won't pose any threat. Charlie glanced at his parents, and finally gritted his teeth and agreed. The future Miki once told me that in the 2 years when Charlie and I were separated, it gave Yuki an opportunity. So before I completely take over the Charlie family, I will endure the nausea and continue to live with him. After all, just thinking that after my death, Yuki would be wearing my dress and showing off with my jewels makes me angry. Moreover, Her child also hurt my child. I can never tolerate this from happening. 11 On the way home by car. I was very calm. But Charlie's face was very ugly. Why is he unhappy? I can't figure it out. For such a serious matter as cheating. I have forgiven him. What else is he not satisfied with? Probably it's because he is distressed about those shares. I turned my head to look at the night view outside the window. The night was deep. The light of the street lamps flashed by in front of my eyes, pulling out blurred light and shadows. I think this matter is over. From now on, Charlie is a stranger living under the same roof as me. After returning home, the nanny had already rested. I took a set of bedding and went to the study. After coming out, looking at Charlie who was struggling to apply medicine in front of the mirror, my tone was calm. From today on, we will sleep in separate rooms. If you have needs, I allow you to spend money and solve it outside. But don't touch me again. I'm afraid of getting sick. And also, don't use the bathroom upstairs anymore. Use the one downstairs from now on. Charlie's hand applying medicine paused, and his face suddenly darkened. He stood up and strode in front of me, grabbed my hand and entered the bedroom, and pressed me hard against the wall. This set of actions was too coherent. Before I could react, I saw his lips about to fall. I subconsciously slapped him. With a slap. It was crisp and loud. Charlie was slapped and turned his head aside. A red palm print appeared on his face. His voice was hoarse. Can't we go back to the past? I was stunned. What's wrong with him? In this situation, it's good enough that I can still live with him. How can he still expect to go back to the past? Charlie lowered his eyes. Can money solve all our problems now? Will you forgive me if I cheat again next time and give you money? Annie, do you still love me? His tone contained accusations, as if he was very disappointed in me. I understood in an instant. My calm attitude of accepting money and calming things down today made Charlie angry. Perhaps in his opinion, I should make a big fuss. It would be best to take a kitchen knife and chop up Yuki to prove how important he is in my heart. My calmness didn't match his imagination of being caught cheating. I couldn't help laughing. What do you want me to do? You don't want a divorce when there's a fuss. You're not happy if there's no fuss. Why are you so perverted? Half of Charlie's face was hidden in the shadow, and his emotions couldn't be seen. After a while, his voice was hoarse, as if he was making a promise to himself. Annie, I still love you very much. Trust me again. We can go back to the past. I shook my head. We can't go back. As long as the child in Yuki's belly is still there, we can never go back between us. 12 The matter of firing Yuki caused a big stir. She didn't want to leave. When she was forcibly dragged out of the Charlie family building by bodyguards, I just came back from negotiating outside. I happened to see her in a miserable state. Yuki was obviously already in a state of desperation. Looking at my eyes, anger instantly ignited. Annie, I'm pregnant with your husband's child. Your husband just gave me 30,000 and you want to send me away. He, the president of the Charlie family, spent 3 million on a Bentley, and he just sent me away with 30,000 yuan. Does he think I'm a beggar? People around cast strange glances. But I didn't care. After all, it's not me who is lose one's composure and loses face. After Charlie's credit card was suspended, the 30,000 yuan he gave Yuki was probably all the money he could gather from various small change. After all, he has never had the habit of keeping private savings. I made a record of all the famous watches and luxury goods at home. In front of him, I instructed the nanny to count them regularly. If one piece is missing, call the police directly. Charlie couldn't sell any valuable things to compensate Yuki either. I straightened my back and looked at Yuki inferently. Do you understand the law? Even if it's 30,000, it's also the joint property of Charlie and me. Since he took it out and gave it to you privately, legally, morally and reasonably, you should return it. I haven't pursued the luxury goods and cars that Charlie gave you. However, Considering that you have worked for Charlie's family, these things are regarded as rewards for you. Keep them and play with them." Yuki's face turned deathly pale and she shouted loudly, "You are talking about the law with me? Now illegitimate children are also protected by law. I will give birth to him on purpose. By then, Charlie will still have to pay alimony." Looking at her furious appearance, I smiled and said casually, "Do as you please. Charlie has lost his shares and there is no property under his name. All the properties are registered under my name. Even if Yuki wants to make a fuss, she won't get much money. Moreover, with Charlie's ruthlessness, if he can have the intention to kill me, then this child of Yuki probably won't be born." 13A farce didn't affect my good mood of winning a large order. In the evening, I went to pick up Miki from kindergarten and went to a parent-child themed restaurant together. Charlie sent me a message with a picture of Yuki on the operating table, being firmly held down by people. He was concise, aborted. Looking at Miki who was playing with ocean balls, I felt a chill down my spine. Until this moment, I completely saw the dark side of Charlie. His ruthlessness made me terrified. The next day, for some reason, I was a bit restless. As soon as 3:30 p.m. arrived, I pushed open the office door and was about to pick up Miki. Seeing this, Charlie followed behind me. "From today on, we will pick up Miki from school together and go home together. Annie, I will be a good husband and a good father," he repeated again. Slowly, "We will definitely return to the way we were before." I didn't pay attention to him. After all, he is Miki's father. I have no reason to stop him from picking up the child. There were already many parents waiting at the kindergarten entrance. When Miki's class was dismissed, I just picked him up. Suddenly someone shouted loudly behind me, "Be careful! Run!" accompanied by exclamations. A white BMW suddenly rushed towards me. I only felt a strong force push me aside. In the chaos, I instinctively protected Miki with my body. Miki was crying loudly in my arms. When I came to my senses, Charlie had already fallen under the car. He hit his head and lost consciousness. His lower body was crushed by the front wheel of the BMW. A bloody mess. There were also other injured people of different degrees around. Yuki stumbled out of the driver's seat and was subdued on the ground by the security guard. She was pale and her hair was messy. She roared at me, "My child is dead. Why is your child still alive? Why?" 14 Charlie survived. But he was paraplegic. He couldn't move anything below his neck and needed a caregiver by his side for life. Yuki was prosecuted for intentional homicide. The prison sentence starts from 20 years. I stood by Charlie's hospital bed and watched him collapse in despair, scream in pain, unable to accept the fact that he was disabled. Finally, he calmed down. "Annie, I saved your life. You can't leave me or divorce me for the rest of your life." I sat by his hospital bed and peeled an apple. "Your logic is very strange. If you hadn't provoked Yuki, how would I have fallen into such danger?" Charlie was speechless and his eyes gradually lost their luster. After a long while, he said, "You are right. This is my retribution." What I didn't say was, "It doesn't matter whether we divorce or not now. Today's Charlie can't cause any more trouble. I figured it out. A life with money but no love is no big deal. I took over everything of Charlie's family. In the future, it will also be taken over by my only son. Miki, my child, will never repeat the fate of losing his mother, being lamed and being abandoned." Epilogue: Miki at the age of 5. When Miki happily returned home, with the first place trophy of the kindergarten group in the Go competition, he only then learned that his mother had died. He was still very young, and didn't know what death meant. In the days that followed, he gradually understood what it meant for his mother to die. No one kissed his forehead before he went out. No one sang to him to lull him to sleep at night. No one patiently told him stories anymore. No one helped him up and gently asked if he was hurt when he fell. Dad was in a slump for a long time. Before the age of 7, Miki was still willing to call Charlie dad. Until that night. Miki, who had just started primary school, saw Charlie, drunk, holding his mother's photo and murmuring softly, "Why did you insist on divorcing? I have promised you to break off with the woman outside. It was me who killed you. Only when you are dead will you stay by my side obediently." Miki was stunned. The glass in his hand slipped due to shock, and the warm milk splashed on the ground. Charlie turned his head, his eyes sinister. "Miki, what did you hear?" Miki didn't dare to speak. Charlie smiled softly. "You are still young and don't understand. Dad did this because he loves Mom too much and had to do it this way. Understand?" From that day on, Miki never called Charlie dad again. Later, a woman Charlie kept outside had secretly given birth to a child. Miki once saw Yuki bring the child to the company. Charlie picked up the child and coaxed it. Looking like a loving father, Yuki was standing beside him, smiling calmly. The whole family was in harmony. Miki hated Charlie even more. His mother was so gentle, kind and resilient and could have had a wonderful life. It was Charlie who took her life. And now, he could still hold an illegitimate child, as if nothing had happened, and enjoy family happiness. Why? Yuki felt Miki's intense gaze and turned to look outside the glass door. She sneered at him contemptuously. Yuki gave birth to one child after another. Finally, Miki's grandma nodded and she married into the Charlie family, officially becoming Mrs. Charlie. At the age of 15, Miki also returned to the Charlie family on the day when he pushed Yuki down the stairs. The grandma who had fought for him at the beginning didn't care much anymore. After all, she now had 3 more grandsons. Even when he was pushed onto the road by Yuki's child and had a car accident, the people of the Charlie family still took the side of Yuki's child. At this point, Miki had no attachment to the Charlie family at all. He swore to make Charlie and Yuki pay the due price. Over the years, he had been fighting with the Charlie family. As long as he was alive, the people of the Charlie family would not have an easy time. Until the time regression project he invested in had a breakthrough. As one of the first batch of experimenters, he went back to the year when Annie was years old. He saw his young mother. Tears welled up and he knelt in front of her. "Mom." The first meeting couldn't last too long. The time machine was still being updated and iterated. When he traveled back for the second time, and then returned, everything around Miki gradually melted away. In a trance, he saw another 45-year-old self who had become a university professor. His wife was recognized by his mother as the successor of the Charlie family. Mother was holding her granddaughter with a loving and peaceful smile. So good, Miki thought. This is the life Annie should have. A peaceful life all her life. And